11th appointment of the Thursday evening event. Welcome, members. We actually are in few this evening, but hopefully it's going to increase in a little bit. This evening we are going to have like a guest speaker as Stephane Malka. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit, terrified. It's the first time I do this stuff. And Roberto Busnelli, who is going to actually introduce the evening. And we are very actually pleased to have Stephane because it's, in our opinion, an utopical architect and very peculiar what he does in life. And we're actually, I thank also all the other guys that are on Ustream connection. And here we go. Thank you.
Grazie mille. Io non ho preparato nulla in inglese, in realtà quindi farò una brevissima presentazione in italiano, poi mi interfaccio naturalmente con lui in inglese dopo. Buonasera, è un piacere essere qui con gli amici Lorenzo e Stefania e sono contentissima di essere qui questa sera con Stephane Malka perché penso che abbia veramente qualcosa da raccontare a un pubblico italiano, a un pubblico internazionale. Due parole solo per dire come noi abbiamo per la prima volta visto i progetti di Stephane Malka, come abbiamo poi deciso di presentarli e perché poi continueremo anche a fare dei lavori assieme per il prossimo anno. Quindi la prima volta che abbiamo visto i progetti di Stephane Malka ci sono arrivati, noi attraverso la testata naturalmente riceviamo tutti i giorni. Dopo 10 anni, la testata quasi 10 anni, riceviamo moltissimi progetti, le segnalazioni di tanti progetti internazionali. Mi sentite? Sono io che riceviamo tutti i giorni molti progetti da tutto il mondo, veramente, dagli studi internazionali, dai più grandi studi di architettura fino ai piccoli studi emergenti in tutto il mondo. Quando abbiamo visto il progetto delle Camp 47 che vedete in copertina, questo era il numero di aprile di QD, le immagini, i disegni ci hanno trasmesso qualcosa. Quindi quello che dico sempre io ai collaboratori, quando riceviamo un progetto, il nostro piano editoriale dei 4 numeri della testata, i 4 numeri annuali, non ha un vero e proprio piano editoriale se non quello di pubblicare tutte le volte dei progetti che a noi comunicano qualcosa e che quindi pensiamo possano trasmettere qualcosa ai lettori. In questo caso ci hanno parlato sicuramente di un impegno, di una ricerca, anche di una purezza nel credere che l'architettura possa riuscire anche a migliorare quella qualità urbana che è fatta anche di quegli spazi normalmente non considerati, normalmente considerati come spazi poco interessanti. Devo dire la verità, noi di questi progetti di cui parlavo prima, una buona metà sono progetti che parlano di lusso, che parlano comunque di spazi che hanno già una qualità, quindi spazi, la parola che viene più utilizzata è in effetti la qualità, il lusso, quindi interni di un certo tipo. Questo ci ha trasmesso tutto un altro tipo invece di credo. Ci ha comunicato, ci ha trasmesso una sensazione, un'emozione ed è quello che dico sempre, quindi i progetti che scegliamo vengono scelti da un mix di motivazioni chiaramente pragmatiche, quindi sono i dati tecnici del progetto e quindi devono parlare di innovazione, devono parlare di una ricerca, devono parlare di una qualità. Dall'altra è un istinto e quindi devono trasmettere qualcosa e credo che il fatto di trasmettere qualcosa, anche se poi può portare ad una critica, può portare ad una polemica, può portare se trasmettono qualcosa penso che comunque abbiano già alla base una ricerca, un interesse per quanto riguarda, adesso parlo proprio dal punto di vista editoriale. Quindi nel momento in cui abbiamo visto questo progetto abbiamo deciso non solo di parlare sul numero di aprile, ma abbiamo deciso di dedicare la copertina a questo progetto di cui poi vi parlerà direttamente Stephane Malka. E da lì abbiamo iniziato una collaborazione e a Milano in questi giorni e quindi mi è sembrata una cosa interessante poter anche portare Stephane al giovedì del Design Library. Quindi io spero veramente che riesca a trasmettere attraverso la descrizione di questo progetto, ma anche di tutti i suoi progetti, della filosofia che c'è dietro, della purezza che c'è dietro questo modo di intendere l'architettura, che vi possa trasmettere qualcosa. Quindi lascio adesso la parola e poi vediamo un attimino di fare possibilmente un dialogo esatto anche con voi.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm Stephane Malka. As you can hear, I'm a French guy, Parisian-based architect. So I'll try to introduce you throughout this little moment that we'll spend together, throughout the work of mine and how I deal with architecture. Simply first, throughout my logo. It's quite simple, but it gives the strategy of the places that I intend to install, to attack, to develop into architecture. First one is in front, so it's talking about the facades and all the elements that could be in front of the existing building. Second one is below, bridges, highways, many different possibilities. Third one is on top of the building, urban enhancement, development, vertical development. And the last one, in between. So in all of those elements, it's a different way to approach the existing architecture. My book, that I will talk about a little later on, is entitled Le Petit Paris, and the name is Architectural Kama Sutra. Why architectural Kama Sutra? When you come to think about it, since the 60s, it's very common to say, let's make love, love is in the air. But in architecture, the way it comes and the way we develop it is very strict. I mean, you all know and all familiar with the notion of the tabula rasa, which means to eradicate some building and to develop another building on top of it. So, I mean, on the ashes of it. So, for this notion, it's quite critical because if you make a comparison to human being, it's a total execution. So we're talking about killing architecture in order to rebuild architecture. So, to me, there's a different way to approach the existing building, which is the different angle that I showed you before, and I will showcase a little bit more. When you look at the city, for example, those 9 cities that we all know, and we all know how it's designed and how the grid is designed, it's, to me, a little bit an archaic way to just see the architecture, because architecture, of course, is three-dimensional, as you can see in New York, for example. And this image is quite important to me because it goes back to one of my first love, which was graffiti in the mid-80s. So I was painting for about 10 years. At that time it wasn't really street art, it was pure vandalism. And I've came to realize that all the spots that I came to paint in was neglected part of the city. So for here, this example, the rooftops, or the blind walls again, like in Paris. And of course, all the writers follow the same direction because they go on the empty spots that are that could have the potential to carry their pieces because they want it to be seen. So those are literally like canvas in the city. This, for example, Os Gemeos in Brazil is an amazing way to showcase this architecture that is standing by and waiting throughout the time to be developed. Like in Paris again, on the blind wall, but in the same time on the rooftop. And of course, graffiti goes and invades literally all the places that architects or politicians decide that it's not convenient to go. So that's a place. It's remind me of the horror vacui, which is the way of to be frightened from the emptiness, l'horreur du vide, horror vacui. And throughout the time, it became, as we know, street art, and then people had time to think about their work and to develop it, and when you look at it, it talks with architecture. The entrance, the exit way, and it's totally a part of the composition, and it's a full part of the urban component that create this new order in architecture. As we all know, columns are the symbolical of the order in architecture, and to me, those columns that are painted like that, it's not innocent. It really means a new order in architecture. So since the end of the 90s, I started to develop the concept of graffitecture, which mix graffiti and architecture. I will explain you, but mainly those elements that we're triggering to is the prints of the city and how we leave marks and how we express the way we live in the city and how we fill the gaps inside the city. Organically, this is a view from a microscope, and you can see that even the wood react to it, and even where it's stretched, you have gaps that are naturally filled. So the book that I'm going to talk about today, Le Petit Paris, you'll have it here, and you'll be all welcome to have a look at it. It's a book I had the opportunity to release earlier this year, and that talks about a different way, an alternative way to develop architecture. A very important point to me is, if we talk about utopia, the only thing that is utopian for me in this book is that it's centered itself and it aims only about the human being. And when I mean the human being, I'm not talking about the modular, or where you just scale the people, but I'm talking about his aspiration, the way which human being develops itself, the way he thinks, where he wants to be, the pleasure of the city and the pleasure of walking by, and not being only a size regarding to a building. For the rest, all the project, or almost all the project, are super easy to build and actually much more cheaper than regular architecture. So I'll start with, I'll go for with chapters as you've seen before, and it goes on the below chapter where I'll develop a project. It comes from a thought that finally this image, as we all know, this place where your hope of living is about 1 hour maximum, is still part of the city, still the public domain, and it's still a public space. And even the spaces below the highway are in the city, but we always have a situation to fill them. So by traveling and I saw this place, and I came to realize that of course there are more flexible ways to inhabit those elements. Of course here the scaffolder were done just to build and to restore the bridge, but actually it's a very flexible and smart way to develop an alternative architecture. Bunker Gallery is a cooperative project that unites different owners of this gallery. As simple as that, as much as you invest little money on it or much more, you'll have a slice of it that goes from very small to longer size of the elements. So the Bunker Gallery inserts itself underneath the Barbès subway station. For those who know Paris, Barbès is a very popular neighborhood. And in this popular neighborhood, of course, there's not a lot of mixity, it's mainly housing, and people tend to always look down and look to the ground. So the idea of it is to raise the eye and the level of eye, and to raise it up to see how things can work differently. Because as you all know, when we walk in any kind of city, everything is designed so we just remain super horizontal with the signs, the neons, the shops. And so we keep this eye over there, but rarely we raise the head up or just to see how the weather is going, if it's going to fall on us or not. So this gallery, to me, was very important because it's in between a gap, in between the subway that is on top of it and in between the streets that is below. And it doesn't change anything from the uses on the two level. It uses them because you can come on the subway from the top and take the elevator and go down straight to the gallery. And at the same time, you can go down to the street and go up from the legs of the. Here you have one from the leg of the museum. Here you have an elevation. So this project, as all of the other, is not made and designed simply to say, okay, this is how it's going to look, but it's more about developing a strategy. For example, this one is a compression in time of the different buyer. One come, one buy, up, and the slice goes on, and you build, and you build, and you build. And it's hundreds of meters long, this bridge, so it can go on and on. So this image, as you see it right now, it could be totally developed differently because it's the compression in time of the different movements and the different buyers. As you can see here, it wouldn't definitely not change the popular way of living. And to me, it's very important to express that galleries shouldn't be just blank space virgin, but it should be connected and related to the urban fabric. We go to the next chapter, which is on top, as you can see. Rooftops are very singular in every kind of city. Either, like here, very Mediterranean, it has a particular shape. Either, like here in Egypt, where it's more cubic. Or another example here in Caracas, in Petare, where it's just favela, but still it has a shape that duplicates itself, and that is where you can totally take a scheme and design something out of it if you want to extend up. In the case of Paris, Paris is made of 70 to 80% almost of Haussmannian or neo-Haussmannian building. So that's how came one of my first built project that was in 2002 called Top Nest. A guy came to me and said, okay, I don't have a lot of budget, but I want to open a small bar and let's try to make it different. I said, I just won at this moment a competition, it was in 1999, so it was a few years before, about raising another level on top of Paris. So that was an image from the competition. So I told him, okay, maybe we can open a bar on a rooftop. So now, okay, let's go. And we went and developed this stuff that is on the Boulevard Haussmann in Paris. That is a very simple white bar that came to be built in 2 or 3 days, very fastly, and that was supposed to stay there only for summer. So simple white, just to be the more modest shape possible, and at the same time that's something that could totally breathe and show some of the whiteness of the Parisian sky. This is the image now because it didn't stay for a summer, it stayed there for 12 years. So, and nobody didn't even bother to paint it, so it stayed like it is. And sometimes stuff that are supposed to stay a little time actually can end up staying much, much longer. A project from the book, which is called Rooftop Theater. And the idea from Rooftop Theater came from we have this expression in Paris that says le théâtre de boulevard. So it's this very typical theater that were inspired from the boulevards and the French boulevard that is very popular, very grotesque, almost burlesque. And so the idea of it is to develop another typology of theater that could give another typology of theater. For rooftop theater, the idea is to take some planks of wood and to recycle them into a facade that would envelop all the amphitheaters. As you can see here, in the back of me, there's this different layer that totally match the form of the roof, and that totally use them and improve them in order to have different amphitheater on top of it. Well, so again, for this project, it's the strategy of recycling for this one, the wood planks that give the shapes to the facade and the randomness of it. Neo-Haussmann is a project that developed technically the Haussmannian heritage in Paris. It's not new. Like in here in Place Dauphine, you can see that on top of those, you had an extension of the rooftops. So, or here, I really appreciate this one with the bridge, because Marie de Médicis have ordered the first bridge, and later on another bridge came on top of it. In the other one behind me, it's on Rue de Rivoli, and you have an extension that came decades after the first creation of the building. So urban vertical extensions are not new. It's just a traditional that perpetuates differently. Brings us, that, by the way, is an image that I took yesterday from when I came from the airport, and actually it says right, there's free zone up in there, and there were tons of it, and they don't know how damn right they are. So we bring back to Neo-Haussmann. Neo-Haussmann is taking as a cliché the old idea of loving the old stones. Why? Because what you see is totally not what you get. Neo-Haussmann is a very light structure made out of wood, and the facade actually is a print facade. So it's just a fake one where you just have the insulation inside of it, and it's print plastic, and inside of it you have your full apartment that goes from side to side. As you can see it more frontally, you can totally imagine where it goes. And the funny part of this, even though this project was released 3 years ago, we came to right now have this discussion in the city of Paris to really think about how to develop vertically the city. Of course, it affects directly the market and the economy of market, and lower the prices. It would be a big balance in the inflations of the housing. As it's plastic with insulation, of course, when the light goes in at night, you can totally appreciate the mild transparency that you could have. And so for this example, of course, there's a lot of way to develop vertically, and we know with wood structure that is super light, super flexible, how to do those elements very, very fastly, and with a silent construction site, because you just come and basically plug it on top of the architecture, existing architecture. Pont Neuf, new bridge, is actually one of those elements that I told you before when you had L'Homme de Vitruve, explaining that it's really the inspirations and the expression of the human being that is at the core of the project. As you all know, inhabited bridges, as we have in Paris and as you have in Italy, are very popular, and it was a way not to express only that a bridge is a masterpiece just to cross, but it's a masterpiece where you could totally stay and develop literally commercial events and housing. Pont Neuf is actually a project of a mobile city bringing the culture of the ghetto inside the city. All this culture that is becoming now super mainstream throughout, for example, hip-hop culture and a lot of other. It's interesting to see the distance that people still keep with it. So the idea of Pont-Neuf is to have this mobile city that is basically built on scaffolder and camouflage textile and just plain boxes, to bring this juice and to bring it inside the city. Inside of it, different possibility, vertical sports, recording studio, libraries, and different way to bring this strong cultural background that is kept away from the center of Paris. So as you can see in this closely picture, you can really see that it's textile, the white element that is really floating and enable people to just walk from one street to the other with a little more intimacy. This is how it would look on Le Pont-Neuf. And those elements, again, the shape would come only with the possibility of people that could come or couldn't come, and the shape creates itself like that. Here you can see with a closer look how, for example, vertical basketball could totally work, and the way we could develop way to make music, to dance, or to express this strong culture that is kept behind. In between the gaps. So brings us to one of the first projects I've published, which is called Selfdefense. Self-defense was triggered by different elements. One that was very important is one of Christo's first installation, where he literally blocked the street. So his intervention was said, okay, now I'm bringing art into the streets, and you know what, you're not going to pass, and you'll have a look at my piece, either you want it or not. And I'll show you a few inspirations that came out to this project. Another one is the kibbutz in Israel, before the creation of the government, how people went there spontaneously to create a voluntary ghetto. Being there together and work with a cause that was totally different and away from creating a government, but just being together. And for there, it was farming, for example. But there's other example. Burning Man is one hell of example. Burning Man, for those who don't know, is a spontaneous city of 60,000 people that is done in the middle of the desert. So people came and stayed together for the love of art and music. So in this place, it's really, really, really interesting, because you really feel how powerful it is to stand together and to be united in one direction. Another one to me is the block parties from the late 90s and early 80s in New York. For example, here a block party from the Rocksteady crew. Block parties have this interest that finally it goes in the public space, and the public space is totally blocked, and from there you can develop your own stuff, your own world. You just cut the city, and that's where it starts. Another pop reference is Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport. I was a little child when I saw this movie, and for those who don't know, it's just before he does his little dance in this bar. So he entered in a place called Kowloon City, and that's how, by this very popular way, I went to be introduced to Kowloon City. Kowloon City is a very interesting example of a community that were brought together by need at first, but that totally, it's in Hong Kong, and it has totally resisted the Chinese colonization, the Great Britain colonization, So throughout the time, even though all the country was belonged to Great Britain, this little pocket was a pocket of resistance where people could live by their own rule. Even though later on, with the Japanese War and World War II, this place kept along and stayed united and that working by their own rule, no police allowed, and all the stuff were doing on their own. Of course, it was the triad and some other elements, but mainly it was regulated by the people themselves. And here you have some little schemes that show you how it grows and how the density went crazy. And at the end, in the 90s, they totally took it off as a new development of the city, because when there's nothing to struggle against or nothing to be more united, when you're in a city that seems to be economically growing, you don't need this kind of situation. So this brings us to Selfdefense, which is a project that came from the events of the Les Sans-Papiers, the people that had no paper but in Paris, and that created this whole wave of indignation. Parisians, French in particular, as you know, they love to be on strike. You know, when there's a new law, or when the taxes are going up, or if there's a need for something different, everybody goes on strike, everybody in the street. But the point is that after the whole day of strike, cops are around, and of course everybody goes home, and where they feel that they are being very much useful to the community and to socialism, and they go home. So the idea of self-defense is to unite those people, the forsaken, the utopians, the people that have something to struggle about, and to do an architectural guerrilla, for example here in La Grande Arche de la Défense. La Grande Arche de la Défense is in the perfect perspective of another arch that I'm sure you all know, that is in top of Les Champs-Élysées. So it's the perspective, and it's the symbolic of the perspective of the extension of Paris. So for a certain moment, it was expressed how the business and how liberalism should express itself in Paris. It's scaleless, as you can see when you have a look at the people that are there. It's super small and it's very strong. It shows the power of the state. So that's why this project, to me, it was very important to develop it there. And actually, it's very funny because 2 years ago, there was this continuous movement against capitalism that went in La Défense, and they were there with tents, and they installed themselves in the heart of La Grande Arche. So it was really very surprising, but in the same time it makes sense because the symbolic is strong in France. Voilà, so you have this development about it. Of course, again, this is a strategy, and this is in a moment where it would have been totally packed. And you get this to me is an expression about how finally, at the end of the day, architects can be something else than the strong hand of the government, but that can try to commit themselves into some more social ideas. Another social movement was the Mai 68, May 68 events in Paris. Sorry, I drink a lot, I'm French. And Mai 68 was a very particular, it was a little revolution in France, because it was a social, cultural revolution of people that wanted to break the rules. So what's very interesting in there is that they used a lot of barricades. As you can see here, they took whatever was down in the street and they raised it up in order to protect themselves. Another one with what we call le pavé, which are the typical rocks sands in Paris, and they had this slogan who say "Sous le pavé la plage," underneath the pavement, the beach. So as utopian as it was, but actually they were taking it off. And so the idea of the barricade is very interesting in terms of sheltering and a spontaneous way to protect yourself. This brought us to Active Desktop project. This comes on two voids. We call those voids, as you get them here, we call them dents creuses in French, which mean empty tooth, literally. And it's those urban forms that you have when the building is high, another low, another one is high. So the idea of it is to just give a strategy and saying, okay, you just take some wood planks and you can knock them one to another and develop a place where you can temporarily work and do some stuff. Well, you have some view and some elevations about it. Again, something that is always related, which is the relation between the graffiti and the spontaneous graffiti and the spontaneous architecture. View inside. All of those elements, I didn't raise the problem before, but we are in a period, as you all know, where we overproduce manufactured project, and so we have a real problem facing those stuff regarding to what it becomes after. We really don't know, and we're in a moment where this that you multiply with overpopulation in the world and the amount of people that we are overproducing. We are taking from the soil each year 1.5 times what the earth could bring, but in 1 year. So those elements brought me to try to think about an alternative way to make the architecture, and it came clear when I saw this porte-bouteille from Marcel Duchamp, who developed the ready-made. So ready-made is very powerful. Why? Because it just introduced the manufactured object as, for here, for instance, a total object of art. And this mixing the need that we have with recycle the manufactured object brought me slowly to an architectural ready-made. For example, one of my first projects was the Black Bloc shop in the Palais de Tokyo in Paris, and they didn't have a lot of budget, so and I was thinking about what to do. And I came to a gas station and I saw they were about to close, so they were selling everything. So I said, okay, let's take the core of the gas station and let's bring it elsewhere. So it went very fast, because from there you just had to take the element and to bring it to another place. Here in the Palais de Tokyo, where everything is more or less open, we kept the total way to leave it open, just putting a little industrial ramp that would bring us to the shop. And those fridge that was showcasing industrial object, showcase like very unique object out of that. So you still have the soul of the gas station, except that we've put some little wheels and little custom furniture around it. And the whole shop was built by the staff of the boutique. That's a very important part of it, is that at the end of the day, if you want to shortcut architecture, we have to shortcut the way to build this architecture too, not going by usual builders, etc., etc. Another manufactured object that kept my attention for a few years are the cardboard boxes. I was invited in Russia for a festival around architecture, around, sorry, lapsus, graffiti. And in this place that is super blank, we had to, I tried to develop a project about density. When you come to it, it just went super fast because we just, as I said before, like buy it, close it, painting. It could be like a Daft Punk song, like and those elements in there went very fast, and we've really overtook the space, and the mirror really played a lot of this action because the perspective just never ends. And when you go there, you don't know what's the lower part, what's the highest part. And as I really appreciate the way to develop those elements, I've made another one in Spain this time, as you can see with the fragile sign around it. And again, talking about the hyperdensity of the city, and to develop on top and on the side of it. At night it became quite interesting because you felt like you were in a very mysterious place. And another hijacking of material came from this necessity. I was doing an installation for a Biennale, but as I'm an architect, I like to have plans sometime and to try to plan a little bit the stuff. But here, as for this troglodyte architecture, it's in Santorini. They couldn't give me anything, so I was not able to develop a project. So I came basically in the island with my hands in my pockets and my nose up in the sky, and I realized that they had something like 200 or 250 people that has shipped their artwork from all around the world. So I just saw these polystyrene sheets. I said, okay, this is it, we have a lot of them, and it's very interesting because we can use, even though they are coming from different countries, we can all unite them and it would be like the core of the whole artwork that has been sent. So this was mainly a dialogue with vernacular architecture, so it was going into the curves and inside and outside and following the shape of it. Put the system inside so it can have some light, etc. And it went somehow very popular then. I want to be enamored with this. For them it was very arte povera, very Greek, because they said to them it was like the dream of this volcano that killed, that destroyed half of the island. Voilà. Another material hijack that I've developed for Milan. I had the opportunity to go there a few years ago, and those cardboard tubes are very interesting because flexible, light, and amongst everything, Milan have this very frequent, super hardcore storms. So when it comes, you put your goggles on, and you cannot see for 2 meters, you become totally blind, which is very, very interesting. So I say, okay, maybe we can use those elements and bring a shelter for this moment. So this is not only a shelter, actually. All the tubes were slightly cut in order to receive the wind, and so when you were getting inside of it because of the storm, you would have this music like with an harmonica or a pan flute. So it was really a circle inside the circle of La Playa. So you get there and you are away from the storm, and at the same time you had this very weird kind of music going on. And as people are always dressed and they're in disguise all the time, they are very colorful, or so you just create something that was very surrealistic. As you can see here, there's this Tatlin project on the back. Somebody came and gave an installation here. Yeah, you have amazing machine that goes along the way. And so it brings a total atmosphere, and in the same time it was very ecological, because then as much as you can there, you just burn the stuff, and when you're in Burning Man, you won't see, at least at this time, you couldn't see somebody even dropping anything in the desert. This desert is a dry lake from an old Indian tribe, so it's something like holy, and everybody respects the whole ecology of the site. Voilà, so you have a view a little bit on top, and the thickness of the tube brought the variation to the music actually, and brought this very weird sound. Last chapter. It's in front of the buildings. So again, in this ready-made architecture, this one was a project I wanted to develop. It comes from the wooden palette, as it's been used on many different levels. But we thought about it as we were designing this student housing. Again, this student housing is not on the logical ground way, so it's cantilevered, and in the same time, even legally, I've realized it on this project, by this time it's cantilevered because you don't follow the ground and there's zero footprint on the floor, and in the same time you're still developing on a way that it belongs, it's in the air. So it was very hard for some people at La Mairie Paris to define at first when I developed this project. Then of course the palette, even though they are the same, when you combine them together, it brings a geometry that is totally constantly changing. As you can see here and there, it would never stay in with the same shape, and totally move with the uses of the people. Voilà, you have some views, and again, as you can see here, it doesn't touch the floor, and the shape is just the extension of all the blind walls. Like if you could have taken the blind walls and stretched them from 6.5 meters. And those projects, as I've said before, of course, for me they are a very important way, because today, when you talk about ecology in architecture, you realize that it's mainly about how to maintain the labels and to say, okay, we are green, but at the end of the day, the architecture is one of the biggest, have the biggest contribution to pollution in the world. As you all know about what it's called now the 7th continent, we have islands that are 600,000 kilometers square that are floating in the oceans. It's almost the size of France. And we don't know how to deal with that. And as you can see here, you realize that most of it comes from what we are using in architecture. So it's straight our responsibility as architects to try to rethink about it, and seriously, not in terms of only labor or to have tax refunds or stuff like that. It's a heavy responsibility we're dealing with. For instance, the bottles of water that we have here, it's insane, because you come to realize that what we need maybe 2 or 3 at least of these a day, and it's in this material, plastic, that will live longer than us, that will stay longer than us, our children, even our children's children, while we use all of them many times a day. When you have a look at this section of those islands, you can see how heavy and how deep it is. And the point is that, differently from what we think, it's not like full elements of plastics. It's small particles of plastics that are floating. So it's something that is even hard to fully reach, because at a certain point you of course realize the impact that it has on nature. And you can see over here how long it takes from a single bag, plastic bag, 20 years, because of course when you buy those you have a plastic bag, so it brings a total nonsense. So those elements that are totally not suitable for this kind of use are fully suitable, for example, for architecture. Let me explain that. For example, with the PVC tubes, they have a super long life resistant. I've used it in a project that is in a book that is called Service Station, because it's on top of a service station in Paris, where you have a kind of factory, the hallway of the 21st century, what we could have called 10 years ago in Paris La French Touch, for the music, of course. And so those elements are fully operational the same way they are used today, which is bringing electrical cable from one point to another. So it bringing and all the from all the boxes that are inside for the studio recording and the music making, or the atelier d'artistes that are inside, it totally follows the cube that are inside. So the more you push your cube, the more the facade reacts to it. Voilà, here you can see with the boxes that are inside, and still the gas station that is below still carry on working. Voilà, a view from the almost elevation of the project. Another hijacking of object is the scaffolder. Scaffolder, it's super easy, it's super cheap, flexible. Everybody know how it stands and how we can use them. For this Geobox project, I use a simple solution for a garden extension. We could totally call somebody saying, hey, I want my 200 box extension for a few hours. Like, okay, here we go, what we want, 1 module, 2 module. It's super easy and flexible. We just need to have different regulations so we can apply it. And this could totally bring super easily for a few €100 a very cheap, solid, resistant extensions of our home. Well, I have a closer view of those. I come to those two last projects. Since I've released my book, I try now to, in order to prove that it's not a utopian project, but that it's a totally effective project, to create and to build those projects. So the furtive shelter came, of course, from the necessity of the people to have a shelter, even as temporary as it could be, and to give them, as we say in French, un toit, un droit, one roof, one right. So to bring them together and to unite those people that hide themselves and to put them into blind walls. So we could say that the blind walls with this project have an eye and they are watching us. And so, as you can see here, those are tents that are flipped vertically, where you have a system inside that allow you to totally lay and sleep in this shelter. This is this project is a way to express to the people who don't want to see, and to the politics especially, that they have the right and they could go, and we can create those housing for very, very cheap. And if we have the proper sponsor, it's not even low tech, it's totally zero tech. So yes, it's of course made of scaffolder, and then you can plug the tents with the system that allow you to stay on it. So when I came to build this project, to me it was clear that it was the heritage of Le Modular, because not in his human scale again, but in the way that it's the minimum, the real minimum architecture you could do. That's why it's just for you and for luggage to be inside. And so it's the illegitimate son of this project, and the other one from Parent, that is l'habitat oblique, living obliquely, because that's how you stand when you're inside. A fast section of the system. In Marseille, it was close to the railroad. So inside of it, you have an insulation isothermal blanket and a polyester elastic stretch mate, which is a textile that allow you to lay comfortably. Marseille is, since a long time, among others, it's a port, and it has this special relation to urban violence in certain neighborhoods. The favorite tool of the northern neighborhood in Marseille is the AK-47, so that's where it comes from, the name of this project, which is AK-47, and it came right because there were 47 places to stand inside of it. So this project, as I've made before on the book, and as I've introduced it to you before, is made for was made for a spontaneous community to come and live in. Of course, when you have minimal housing, you realize how much you need from the others that are outside as a community. Because at the end of the day, when you come to think about it, what is a house if it's not only an emotional closet where you store your object? And for the rest, if the city regulation could have improved it, we could have 10 times better possibility to have, for example, dinner. We can then go outside to a restaurant instead of going to the bath to have a bath. You could go to a spa, etc., etc., and we can totally extend this theoretical stuff, and it could totally work, because if you think about how many people we are in the city and how many restaurants are empty, the balance is super easy to do. You'll have all of the restaurants that will be full, and at the same time the price could lower up and could have been more affordable for everyone. So this project, as you can see here, when you're in between the stuff, you have a sliding opening, okay, that looks like a vagina, where you just enter inside the belly, and once you're inside, you can totally lay and rest. You have your little light and the strict necessity for comfort that you could have. But in the same time, I felt it when I was inside. You could totally feel the heat of the people that are on the next one. So you could totally have this very intimate sensation, even though you don't see them, but you know they are here. So it's really like those closed pods that that are one towards another. Voilà, so this was the first design for the travelers, the one that came for a party to stay in there, and after a while it just went and stayed a little by itself, so everyone could make his own housing in this direction. Voilà. This brings us to the last project I'm introducing you this evening. Is a project that in the book is called Arfour, but when I built it last month, it's called Bauhaus, and it's only made of window. That's why it came, window, Bauhaus. And so in the book, it's a place where you can totally fill the gap that is in between two buildings. And in there, there had no level because this was a whole scene for contemporary art, which is convenient because glass, you can prepare your events on the day, and then on night time, you just shine. Well, so this is the Bauhaus itself. So the Bauhaus have this difference that it comes in extension of the public space. So even though it's made of a lot of doors and windows, there's no door to enter, and it's a house for all to share. So every night at around 8 o'clock, I've requested bottle of wine, so the people who are there could totally feel comfortable. This project, you have different layer. The first floor is just it's a little salon. On the second floor, as you can see it here, there's this terrace, and there's a place to meditate on the back. And on the last floor, you have a bed, a room, and another place to meditate. Voila, you can see the elements at night. It's interesting because it's in Netherlands, in this place called Heerlen. The public space is very, very poor. So this one was, as you can see in the picture, this bench is a very rare bench that they have even in the city. So it was a good federated point, because from there people could sit, and as you could see, there's a ladder that brings you in, and you are totally invited to stay in there. So you have a part, the bedroom is up above the trees, so you can totally be by yourself. Nobody can see you up there. You're just fully open to the sky. Voilà. Again, this relation with the blind wall and graffiti, that is always part of it, because this comes as being finally like a little wallpaper inside the Bauhaus. So yeah, once we had this the furniture done inside, even though it's very unusual because it was something like a meter wide, when we started to put furniture, people felt very comfortable to get in and to stay inside of it on the terrace, chilling. And voilà, so here's the bed up there. So it's very rough, very minimal, and the expression is what it is: scaffolder and woods that holds the window. And those two meditation spaces, an oriental carpet, and for those who are more Catholic, if I can say like that, it's you have this chair that is coming. That's a gift from a church, where you just sit and pray. But actually, I've turned it into a place where you can sit and pray. But when you sit, you're facing a mirror, so you can wonder and maybe try to ask yourself the good questions. So, well, basically that's a little view to my work, and we'll end up from here. Or I mean, we can start up from here if you are willing to exchange with me, with us. Voilà. Thank you very much.
So only one thing.
Yeah.
Okay. After seeing that, it's more than a question, it's a curiosity. I was just thinking, how was your, when you were studying, how was your relation to institutional culture, to institutional education? I mean, did you find any support for this vision? Did you find maybe someone that influenced it? Or was it so outsider?
Actually, when I first started, when I opened my first eye, I had a very particular teacher that would show us some stuff on the pop culture, like Miami Vice and stuff like that, and he was introducing us to very strong theory in architecture around that. So I thought from that I was in Marseille, and I said, okay, I'm heading next year to Paris for sure. And he told me that, yeah, you go to Paris, you'll see, you'll find hundreds like me, which I never found. So when I went to Paris, I was totally, I felt very much in my school, stuck behind the judgment, because as you know, architectural get legit by a corpus, either it's built or unbuilt. We all come from the same temple, and we all talk about the same propaganda about modernism in architecture, etc., etc. So at a certain point, I was a little sick and tired to have my building criticized by the teacher. So I would make my own investigation around their building and checking the failures of their building. So if they were talking about the thermical problem of my building. I would just show them the technical problem that had their own building. So in order to, not to fight, but to say, okay, this maybe doesn't work, okay, let's try to see that, maybe it works, and to have an exchange more than what it should be, because architecture is about, to me, it's about who you are when you have the digestion of this heavy background, and it's not to align only. It's because when we check at the when we look at human being, if we can make again this metaphor between architecture and human being, a lot of people like to see buildings super alignedly, the one that looks like the other. But when you bring it to human being, the only moment where you see that is when you look at the army and that they are marching on somewhere. So it's super scary when we see that, and it's exactly the way people want to see architecture. So to me, in order to have this relation with architecture, it has to come to your own background and try to develop it your own way. For instance, all those spots that I've checked here, to me was an opportunity to redevelop a new architecture. You cannot expand the city vertically, alternatively, with a regular architecture. You have to be in connection with what goes on. For example, I gave those examples about the block parties and stuff like that, but in reality there's 10,000 examples that were even stronger, like what happened in Egypt, what happened in North Africa, where people couldn't stand it anymore, and even though it brought to different other problems, they took the street and they brought it their own. And last way about it is that even you see that in emerging country, and that even in third world, you have those common regulations where when you can build your own apartment for overnight, they don't tear it down. They respect it and it's built and it's there. So it's just how urbanism and the law can make an evolution to it. So, well, I think I hope I'll answer your question.
Ok, io direi che se adesso avete voi delle domande da fare, qualche curiosità.
Sì, io grazie.
Ok.
Io controllo il Io uso Elena.
No.
Sì, con questa fortuna grandissima. Uso Elena perché parlo in italiano benissimo e ovviamente lei lo dice. Da queste conferenze vengono sempre fuori delle cose molto interessanti che hanno un sapore particolare stasera davanti a questi progetti. Il valore dell'ispirazione che lasciano, cioè quel senso di libertà assoluta che architetti come Stephane riescono a trasmettere a chi magari frequenta queste serate, non tanto per sentirsi raccontare chi è più bello, chi è più bravo, ma proprio perché sono dei momenti nei quali io, ma credo anche molte altre persone che frequentano, si caricano proprio. Scusatemi, c'è questo momento di...
Okay, so I'll have to translate to you. That's okay. So,
Era un anno che aspettavo questo momento.
okay, so first of all, thank you very much for coming here tonight and for your great presentation. So what Lorenzo was saying is that what you bring here, apart from presenting your project, it's that you're being an inspiration, hopefully. I mean, for me, that I'm a student, you're being so, and probably also for most of the people that are here tonight. So.
She is a student, not me.
Okay, I'm not literally translating what he said. So that's mainly what he said. So he and the design library is promoting this Thursday design just to also hoping that the conference and the people and architects like you are coming here to be an inspiration for students or for architects or for designers and other people. So thank you, because personally speaking, you've been an inspiration to me, and maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
Thank you very much for having me here.
For you, personally,
Yeah.
Elena. Okay,
Sì,
but
posso aggiungere anch'io, in effetti
Of course
è
you
giusto
can.
una conferma.
you can
di quello-
also use Elena too.
Okay, thank you so much. I say it better in Italian, and then thank you for translating. Sì, stavo dicendo una conferma esattamente a quello che dicevi tu, Lorenzo. Mi è sembrata forse la pinata migliore in questo momento, riuscire a portare, oltre che dei racconti, dei progetti sviluppati effettivamente, ma anche delle visioni, delle, chiamiamole provocazioni, comunque qualcosa che possa in qualche modo portare una sinapsi, comunque portare da qualche parte. Il design library sicuramente, secondo me, è un po' questo il senso, quello di non solo insegnare, ma quello proprio di far pensare, quindi semplicemente poter dare delle visioni. In questo caso sono le visioni di Stephane, ma è quello di dire che queste visioni sono possibili, poi ovviamente devono confrontarsi con la realtà, devono confrontarsi con quelle che possono essere le esigenze che in parte abbiamo comunque visto, che sono quelle di budget, che sono esigenze di spazi, che sono esigenze legate a chi ci andrà ad abitare. Però nonostante questo, ecco, lo spunto è quello di poter dire partiamo sempre da un'utopia, partiamo sempre dall'esagerare, e dopodiché insomma è tutto possibile.
È molto interessante che il fatto che è molto locale come architetto. Cioè, questa cosa che dall'estero ci vengono a raccontare queste storie di una storia di architettura molto riferita a una città, a un contesto, a un modo, a una cultura, a una società.
Questo mi fa pensare a una cosa, però now he was saying now that you just showed us projects that are referred to a city, in particular to a town, to a place. But I've read somewhere in your book, Petit Paris, that we now have to think of Europe as a city. Is it correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
this was
okay.
an introduction that was
Of
written by
Yona Friedman,
Yeah.
yes.
He
Yona
talked
Friedman.
about, of course, the boundary and the way we see them, and he had this project called Europe Métropole, where he realized, he said, when I was talking to him, and he just told me, yeah, I was sitting here, and this guy is 92 years old, and he told me, yeah, I realized that my maid is living 2 hours from Paris, and actually 2 hours from Paris, depending on the train you're taking, you can be in London or you can be in Ile-de-France, which is the suburbs of Paris. So of course there's this link about it, but to me, the singularity and the importance of any kind of those projects that are this incremental architecture and the way to develop a fast architecture respond to a simple element. When we look at the prognostic that brings us to 2040, something like that, when you have an overall view of the 10 biggest cities in the world, you'll see that in the worst prognostics, we'll have to face 500,000 to 1 million inhabitants every month to come. So if not architects that will start to think about how to make a fast architecture, who will? So it's probably not by designing malls and airports and those elements of the kind that will have a solution to it. So for now, we are on the edge of it, and we are on this moment where it's super important for us architects that to think elsewhere than what the competition in architecture tell us to think about. Because somehow when you look at the program, you know, as architect, when we are requested to respond to a competition, you have a book that thick saying how you should build your architecture, but it doesn't say the essence, the why of these elements. So they basically just tell you to be over there, and that's where you go. Because if you don't go there, then you're just disqualified and you're not invited anymore. So as architect and from other competencies as sociologues and elements like that, we are really the one that should think about how the city would have to react to those those elements that are very close to come.
Yeah, I think that the most important question could be, do you usually work on traditional architecture?
Well, traditional.
I mean, to live.
Traditional depends on how you,
Yeah.
on where you sit to see traditional. My tradition is to shift, for example, material. Actually, we are working, for example, on a project of offices in the center of Paris, where we have 800 meters square of offices.
Normal people,
together.
those who work there?
Well, geek people, they're on the web. So define your normal, like you define your tradition. But it's very interesting because I came in this project almost at the end of it. I was there and told me, okay, I got projects, I got architects, have a look and you just give me an advice. I said, okay, this is this. And he realized that I had no identity inside of it, but most of it was super expensive to him. So at the end of the day, I came now to design the stuff, and what I do is that I take some elements that are done from the industrial world, and that are already done there, and that I put in the project as new uses. So first of all, it's very convenient because for the clients it's cheap, it's fast. And for them, they say, oh, it's original. To me, I don't do it because it's original, I just do because in the same philosophy, I try to rethink the uses and to shift the object from where they're supposed to be, and not just to shift, but because they are here, they are available, and we don't have to create some more elements.
Yeah, thanks and congratulations for your dreams. I think that they are very inspiring. And, but I have a question for you. The first is how the peoples accept your project and how
Accept, you say?
yes, accept. Or what is the reaction of the people to your project, and what is the reaction of the political, the people of the city, the power of the city, how they related with your proposal?
Actually, even though I'm a quite young architecture firm, something like 5 years, the people that comes to me now, they come to me because they know my identity. So they are very surprised, sometimes more than what they think they will be, but they cannot say, because they know where they were coming for. So for that, it's very very interesting because it goes on. It's challenging when they're coming to me to have this stuff. I'm challenging their idea. I try to not to give them only what they think, but to try to push those things. And as for the city, as I said before, and it's very interesting because now there's this, in Paris the city hall has changed, and since a few months there's this reaction saying, okay, we're about to change Paris, we're about to elevate Paris, we're about to fill the gaps, totally fill the gaps, go on the bridge and so more or less I see that what I've done, and of course I'm not the only one in the world that's not about inhabited bridges or through elevation, but actually those elements that at a certain moment were as a totally outcast of those projects, they are about to make it. The question is how will they make it? Because of course you have to fit the lobbying of architecture, that say, okay, we'll have to do this housing with this kind of material or this, the material that have this kind of certification, because when you come to think about it, if tomorrow you decide to buy a land and in your own, with your own soil, you could totally be able to decide to make bricks out of it, it's very easy, and to build your own house. But architecture took this freedom out of the human people, and you cannot do it, it's becoming illegal if you're doing it, at least in France or in Italy or in Europe, because they put regulations out of it. An architect could totally come to check for the ability of the project and the solidity, saying, yeah, okay, this could stay for 5 years, 3 years. You could be able to have your own freedom to it.
And again, congratulations for your logos.
Merci.
I like your vision from the bottom. I think that's something that works very well. Under the bridge, I think you find very balanced solution.
Thank you very much. It's Laurent Garbit is a guy who designed the logo and who made the whole art direction of the book. And it's very funny because it brings it to something that is more like pop culture. If you open the book, you will have pictures from Huggy Bear, from Starsky and Hutch, then you see Arnold Schwarzenegger or Flavor Flav from Public Enemy, and it brought it to this very more funny and pop culture, which is a culture.
I will
Yes, please.
Just a curiosity about the your animal housing still shelters for the animals.
Oh, yeah, Marseille?
Yeah, exactly. And just wanted to know where you developed it, so what part of the city, and if it was the place that you originally thought about. Because of course it looked very, very different from the project, because from your project you can get the idea that your aim was to kind of merge the two sort of types of housing. So the temporary housing merges with the existing buildings, etc. Like for example in the center of the city, etc. So I was just curious to know how it went. And
actually, as this architecture is totally flexible, it could, of course, a singular project that is developed in a book is only have its shape because it reacts to the shape of the building. For instance, there it was just a blank wall, and the only necessity that we had, they say, okay, don't put so much on the ground because they need to be away from it, so people don't have a little less curiosity if you don't show the way to climb in, how it works. So it was limited because we had a very, very, very little budget. So we had a very small amount of tent possible in there. To be, if I remember well the project, it was supposed to be in front of, in the facade where this picture was taken. But then even though it was a small budget, it was cut, and then it was on when you had 23 units, the building was too big in order to have them, because somehow it's I just wanted to highlight the wall, and as the situation, it's interesting because it goes in the same kinetic of the train station that is up there. And even though the French railroad called SNCF wasn't a big fan to have it that close to their stuff, I really wanted it to have it close because train stations are gates to the city. So I could offer them an exit from the installation to the city.
So just to think back to your question, I have to say that when I first saw the project on the A Camp 47, and so the first thing I thought was the same that you were of your question before. I thought so. The reaction, not so much of the customers, the clients, because he is right. If a customer goes to you, goes to Stephane, then he knows what are your visions, and maybe he simply shares your vision and he just wants this. But my question was about politicians. So then we live in Italy, and we know how it's difficult also to have sometimes authorizations for very regular things. Then we can imagine for these visions and dreams. And the first thing that so I asked this one. And you told me, maybe not the same words, but the sense was also that when you have this dream, you have also sometimes to find the hole in the net of bureaucracy of this, the problems of politics, and then sometimes to go through this hole. Then sometimes this is also part of the dream, which is very, practical, but it is part of these visions.
Yeah, but for example, it's true that this project, to have an answer to this question, as an architectural project, it couldn't work. Of course, you would have tons of regulation that say you cannot build that. But that's where contemporary art helps a lot, because you say, no, it's okay, this is not architecture. This is not a pipe, this is not architecture. This is an art installation where you can, but that you can access. And then they're like, okay, and so it's something that is a little bit new to them, and so it was never being a big deal when they're like, it's like, okay, it's art. Okay, it's art.
Yes, but I think also that if you have installation like this, in a forgotten space, where nobody ill or nobody wants you there, it's okay, it should be acceptable because it's something that puts some question mark, what to do here, what we can offer to do here. But if you take and make a sample on a famous bridge in the center of the city, in a whole bridge, and you put your dream, your vision to building a house on top of this. So this, in all of us, I'm an architect too, so this opened some questions.
Questions, of course.
It's right this way, or why not? Or how we can consider the futures of our place where we live. So this is open with good possibility of the development. Also, the idea to make a double building in an old one. It's okay, you make the design of the facade, seems like an old one, but as architect, I don't know, I have some doubt now. But
some doubts?
Doubts.
About what? About how plastic can stand?
But this is very stimulating, questions and problems to afford.
Yeah, and for sure there's a problem of weight and resistance of material that we can do, but there have been a lot of studies that have been done around this. Osmanian buildings have what we call mitoyen. It's common walls that holds them together one to another. They even go on top of them, all of them. So it's a good way, if you strengthen those walls and you go with wood architecture, for example, which is super light, that can totally go. As for plastic, I don't have any doubt that it can resist a long time. Of course, the print could fade away within a few years or a decade, depending on the orientation. But still, the idea of the surelevation that is very at this moment when I designed the stuff, that was the main idea of the topic, could remain.
Altre domande? No. Va bene. Giungiamo a conclusione anche di questo giovedì del design, quindi vi ringrazio tutti di essere pervenuti per
cortesia aiutatemi a ringraziare ancora un po' Stephane.